Hi, everyone. Today we are rejoining Mindy Dutka. She came in June of 2023 to talk about her wonderful photography efforts to document spay-neuter clinics in far-off places. So today she's going to talk about one that is near and dear to my heart. Let's listen to what Mindy has to say. Hi, everyone. Debra Hamilton, and thank you for coming to the next episode of Why Do Pets Matter? Don't forget to like and share and comment about the podcast so that more people can find the information you found here on Why Do Pets Matter? Today, I have the honor of having a friend back, Mindy Dutka. She was here in June of 2023 to talk about an SOS Save Our Pets event in El Arca, Playa del Sol. She has done so much great work for animals in need. So I'm so glad she's back. She's going to tell us about her recent episodes. And I think everyone will find this really interesting and hopefully will pass the word on. So Mindy, thanks for coming back to Why Do Pets Matter?
Oh, thanks. It's great to be back, and thanks for asking me.
I'm so glad. So we always start with, why do pets matter to you? And I know you told us back in June, but I think we always change why pets matter as we experience pets. So why do pets matter to you, Mindy?
I feel like I could probably talk for about a week, but there's just so many reasons because they they make our lives fuller. They make our lives more joyful. They teach us things, and they just are wonderful beings. Whether your pet is a bird, a dog, a cat, animals are just amazing. And I wish more humans understood that and treated them with the respect and honor that they so deserve.
I know my friend Christine Warner just posted a note that Ricky Gervais, who is a big animal welfare gentleman, is asking the MPs to make sure that people can keep their pets even if they're homeless, because quite frankly, not allowing pets, it's sort of like in domestic violence as well. You can't take your pets with you to a lot of the shelters that you can escape to, but if you leave your pets there, they're likely going to be harmed. So I know that you do so much great work. So tell me what you've been up to.
So just for those that don't know, I'm a dog photographer and a storyteller, and my main thing is the human-animal bond, and trying to be a voice for the voiceless, for the dogs and the animals through my photos and stories. But as you just mentioned about Ricky Gervais, there's so much. I mean, it's kind of the tale of two cities. There's a lot of bad things happening, but there's a lot of good things happening. And there's a lot of people just doing amazing work. And I recently had the opportunity to travel to Suriname with two organizations, the Caribbean Spay-neuter and World Tales. They partnered and they do spay neuter clinics all over the world all the time. The Karen, the founder of Caribbean Spay Neuter, is from Suriname, but has lived in Florida for many decades. But she does so much work there. And they did a spay neuter clinic, and I was invited to come along and document it, which was it was an honor. And I've photographed many spay neuter clinics, as the one you mentioned in Playa del Carmen, but I've never had the opportunity to travel with the group of veterinarians and volunteers. So it was really like a great experience, and to see that piece of it along with the other piece of the animals getting spay neutered and the work it does for the communities. And honestly, I was blown away that these veterinarians and vet techs, and there were a couple of people who just had some experience or purposely trained to be able to volunteer on something like this. They spend their vacations, they spend money to get there because they pay their own expenses. They work for however many days that is, 10, 12-hour days, pretty much nonstop. Not always, but in this case, a hot, humid environment. And they come back again and again and again. And they talk about, there's a lot of discussion about the burnout in the veterinarian field, and they talk about how when they do these clinics, they come back invigorated. That I heard so many different things. I had the opportunity to interview many of them, and one of the things that they said was, it gets in your blood. Doing these kind of clinics and volunteer work. Another one was, she said, how could I not? I have these skills, and I need to use my skills to make a difference. And boy, do they ever! Over 4 days, 566 dogs and cats were spayed and neutered.
Wow.
Yeah, and I look at this whole experience and how it went from start to finish as a symphony, as an orchestra. I mean, everybody just played together to make this great event, from the two World Tales and Caribbean Spay Neuter, so organized. And so much work went into it before we even arrived. So the clinic, the boxes, the shipment, the setup, the coordination with the people on the ground, down to the way that the team, was taken care of. All of our meals were taken care of. And the volunteers and the people in Suriname, so grateful. It was such a joy. There was no ego. There was just everybody doing their part, hand to hand to hand, to make this happen. And there were several things that, well, one that always stands out in my mind is the many, many layers of a spay neuter clinic. Not everybody sees that. From the veterinarians and the volunteers to how it broadens them and the work that they do, from stopping the reproduction and better health, from the community benefiting. Children learn from this. They learn kindness. They learn how to care for their pets. They're involved in it. It's really incredible. And that's why I want to document these things. I want to show the photos. I want to tell the stories, because everybody should know about them. And, they should continue to get support that they need to be able to do more of these.
It's so heartwarming because it really celebrates the human animal bond, because you're enabling people to keep pets with them. And yet maybe they can't afford or don't know that spaying and altering is how they don't have a proliferation of dogs. So if they spay or alter dogs, then their dog is with them. And when they might need another dog, they can maybe go to the shelter and get another dog. But this way, their dog is kept healthy and safe.
Exactly. Exactly. And when I interviewed, people from the community, those were the stories. They were so grateful to be able to do this. And there was a small fee, so they had some skin in the game. But it was affordable to them. And it was also very well planned out. For months before the clinic, they were allowed to register until all the slots were filled up, and they were given a time to come. And this is a little bit different than some of the other clinics that I've been to. The families actually left, and it was all done. And they would come back when the animal was, ready to be released with instructions.
And how long do they take? Do they keep them? Do they keep them overnight, or do they keep them and then do they give them instructions on the way home? Because, of course, dogs are naughty and pull out stitches.
Exactly. So they keep them until it's just the day. So it's probably, maybe about a 8 or 9 hour situation. And then until they've come out of the anesthesia enough, they've given instructions. There are a couple of resources that there is follow-up if there's any issues. And they
Oh,
were
great.
working closely with a shelter. For example, if there had been any issues, the dogs weren't sent home. They were sent to the shelter so that there was 24-hour care, and there was communication between the veterinarians. Actually, there was a dog. It's not ideal situations because the dogs and cats aren't as healthy as maybe you would like them to be, which can cause some complications. And the setup, I was fascinated by it. Was very MASH-like. I kind of date myself by using that term, but
Oh,
you
I
know,
understood it completely.
exactly. It was, in the field, they set up, they had what they had, the equipment that they had, and they made do. And there was one dog that started to bleed, and four veterinarians worked on that dog for hours, and they had no real way to transfuse the dog and give him more blood. They used the dog's blood that the dog lost to re-infuse the dog with its own blood.
Wow, I don't know how they did that, but wow.
Right? I mean, like they work with what they have. They just, boom, 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 boom. I was amazed. And they were so caring, and it kept the clinic open for more hours, because nobody wanted to leave and they were waiting and make sure it was stable. And then that dog went to the shelter, and
Right,
there
to
was a
be
lot of
monitored. Yeah.
be monitored, and there was communication back and forth for several days. And all of that, the veterinarians, is exhausted, that all they could talk about was, how they wanted that dog to be okay.
Yeah.
And it was. So, it was a success story, but it was just fascinating to me the way they worked with what they had, which, speaking of that, it would be wonderful any kind of in-kind donations.
Well, we're going to put the link so that anyone who's listening to this podcast can take the time, have a moment, and if they have some extra cash that they could pass on to the groups that are funding these opportunities for spay neuter. I mean, this is great. It's sort of like when towns fund TNR in community cats.
Right.
It's always important to fund them because that's how the animals are kept safe, and no new animals are necessarily coming that are unwanted. I mean, it's one thing if they're wanted and they are placed in a great home, and people know how to monitor them so that they don't continue to have puppies. If that's not the case, then spaying and neutering is the best next step.
Exactly. And another thing that always strikes me is um, how much that the people love their pets. There's a perception often that it's all just street dogs and people that don't actually care for their pets. It couldn't be further from the
Yeah.
truth. Is there's just some cultural differences, and once you understand that, and these people are dedicating an entire day to making sure that their pets get the best care that they
Yeah.
can. Mhm.
People love dogs in different ways, and I'm not saying that they can abuse them, but there are people who have dogs outside, and in that area, there may be trees and everything else where the dogs can get shade and they get fed and they're there. It might not be like a dog in New York, living in an apartment with everything at his feet, but that doesn't make that relationship and that attachment any less important. It's just a little different.
Exactly. And you start to understand. I was talking to one of the veterinarians who does a lot of clinics on Native American reservations. And, they tie their dogs up to fences, which at just surface is like, oh my God, that's cruel. No, there's no barriers for them. There's wild animals. There's all kinds of things. So it's actually safety. It's because they love the dogs,
Yeah.
not because they're trying to be cruel. So you really have to take some time to understand the reasons behind what's happening.
Yeah, you have to take time to have a collaborative conversation. Don't go in with your preconceived ideas and say, why aren't you doing it this way? Well, because I live in the middle of a tundra, or I live in the middle of, a sunny place, or wherever you live that's different. It doesn't make it right, wrong, or indifferent. But if the dog is thriving, I mean, I always say if the dog is thriving and the people are doing the best they can, they might not be doing it the way you're doing it, and that might be okay.
Right. Exactly. And they've been many times to Suriname, and I heard from many people what a great that they could see the difference. That there were not as many street dogs, there was not as many dogs. And it was interesting because they talked about like the circumference of the city was much better. If you
Yeah.
went outside of that, it still wasn't better. But that they were really making a difference and making a dent. And that's the thing with these spay neuter clinics is it's not a one and done. It's great, but it's more like a few raindrops in a storm.
Yeah.
So the more consistent you can be. And actually, speaking of the SOS El Arca clinics. They are in year 4, just as an update,
Wow.
and 14,000 dogs and cats they have spayed and neutered. So they have completely really changed the landscape of the dogs and cat population in that area because
Wow.
they've been doing them monthly, every month for the last 4 years. Mhm.
And it's a commitment to making sure that these dogs have the best life they can because they personally don't want to have puppies every time.
Right.
And I know culturally sometimes it's hard to alter a dog because there's that whole thing. And yet the dogs are usually healthier and live longer because their prostates don't become enlarged. So there's a good side effect to that. It is important to look at both sides and appreciate where they're coming from and work with them help their pets live the longest, happiest life.
Exactly. And you actually it's the foundation is education. That's what's going to change is the education and understanding that perhaps there's often the theory your dog will be less manly if
Yeah.
you neuter it but when there's an understanding that makes sense, then that's where change occurs, and these clinics create education and they start discussions, and that's how change happens.
And there might be some hard sells, right? There might be people who don't believe in it. And once they see that it works, that the dog came out pretty much unscathed, that the dog lived a happier life, you might have them shift their paradigm on how they feel. And, or their children, like you said, the children were there learning how to take care of their dogs and appreciating their dogs and learning about spay and neuter. And maybe their parents don't want to spay the dogs, but maybe the kids will learn that maybe this is better. I know when Sean Heinrich showed movies of stingrays and sharks in the water, which the kids had never seen, they said, well, maybe we shouldn't harvest them. Maybe we should do maybe ecotourism as a difference to the way they were living their life. Same thing with spay and neuter.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I could go on and on and on. If cultures and in India, there's now an issue where the Supreme Court has passed down an edict that dogs are dangerous, and basically they're rounding them up for shelters, but actually shelters they don't have shelters. It's really a different way of saying that they're going to kill them or worse, perhaps
Well, that's interesting.
it.
I'm wondering because that is a cultural thing as well to some extent because I live next door in Armonk to a wonderful Indian family and they were afraid of my dogs.
Mm,
And so it could be a cultural thing and maybe the next step for a group like yours, the ones you're supporting with your photography, would be to help listen to why they feel that way.
right.
It was funny. I was on a call earlier this week, and somebody was totally against breeders, and they never listen. And I'm sitting there and saying, sometimes we have to listen first.
Right. Well, I believe it starts with kindness. Actually, I think France just passed. Did you follow that? I think they just passed
Mhm.
a law that it'll be taught from preschool up kindness to animals. That is a much better method.
Right.
Hats off to them. And like, it would be so much better if some places would invest in that versus,
Yeah, instead of having Phil Arkow's newsletter every month that tells us about the circle of violence that often starts with animal abuse.
right. Exactly.
So if we can get the kids to understand and take responsibility, and you said that at this group, that was one of the things that was taught, the responsibility for taking care of your pet, for helping your pet heal after the surgery. It's just seems to be intuitive, and yet it might not be because of the balance of power, right? The only thing I have power over is my dog because I'm a little kid. And so if the power dynamics in the family are difficult, then we need to help them learn better ways to express themselves and not at the risk of harming a pet.
Right. Exactly. It's tough. So,
So what else have you been up to? Because I know you're still doing your photography where people can find you and have you take their pets as well when you're in between documenting these wonderful experiences.
yeah, so I'm still doing private family dogs, working for several different brands, photographing for them. And I've got a couple of things on the horizon, hopefully also programs that are happening, storytelling programs that need to be photographed and how dogs really are helping people and changing people and programs where similar. I'm not sharing it yet because it's not all done, but it's basically where dogs are in need and young adults are in need. So
Yeah.
similar to the prison reform programs where they're training dogs, which I think is an incredible program, where just a win-win. There is a program like that I may be working with and teaching the children how to photograph the dogs that they're working with and fostering, and storytelling would be my piece, and also that just draws attention to what's happening. So I several different things, and even talking about just the importance of photography. Recently, I had photographed several years ago a Newfoundland dog that was wonderful, and I saw on Facebook that sadly the dog had passed away, and I commented about, what an honor it was to photograph the dog. And the woman wrote back to me about how she treasures the photos that I took and she will
Yeah.
treasure them for the rest of her life. And it was just, it's in the sadness was the
The
what
moment she captured with you of the dog, we can all take cell phone shots of our dogs, yes, but the moments you capture are just, you know, transcend the human animal bond and sort of create that emotion. The story your picture tells is what really is why people need to maybe think about having a professional photographer take pictures of their pets with them, because every phase of life, puppies, youngsters, midsters, and then oldsters, there's a period of time where you want to remember, even though it's very sad to remember. But that's the basis for the human animal bond. I mean, that's why we wish they would live as long as we do, but they don't. And
only
someone like you helps us keep those pictures alive. So I'm so grateful that you're in my sphere and help my people know how to get pictures and also share your wonderful stories about the people you're helping. Mindy, you're doing such a fabulous job.
Oh, thank you so much. And it's just interesting. It makes me think about traveling with the group of veterinarians. It's unusual to have someone who's not medically involved in a clinic come along. And at first it was kind of I maybe I just perceived it, but like, what are you doing here? What do you mean you're here to like photograph? And I was asking if I could interview people. And there was a little bit of hesitancy at first until I started to say, like, maybe you don't think about the enormity and the wonderfulness of what you're doing. Those stories need to be told because otherwise it's a 5-day clinic that was fabulous. But if
Yeah.
the
And
stories
the only ones who know about it are the 20 vets who were there and the support staff that were there to help them, not anyone outside. And how are you ever going to raise funds? And how are you ever going to continue to do this work? I mean, everybody can go and fundraise, but wouldn't it be great? And I have to tell you, I'm working with a guy, Ron Sosa now, and we are really exploring the way people absorb information. And it's not always through the written word. It's not always through, it's word of mouth. Sometimes it's through the pictures like the ones you've taken and the stories you're going to tell. Because if you tell a story, if you put a picture up, it's one thing. But if you tell a story, it really sticks with people.
exactly, exactly. And then, they were all like, you can interview me, you can interview me after they realized and they got so excited, to see the photos and everything. It's true. That's what stays with you. And even Videos are wonderful, and I know that we are, very video focused nowadays, but there's something about a still photo that stays with you, and it allows the viewer, it tells a story, but it allows the viewer to also almost shape the story, maybe a little bit differently than another viewer.
Yeah.
So it's really so powerful.
I love it. I love it. So, how do people get in touch with you so that we can make sure they can hire you so you can continue to do your work while also documenting this wonderful, heartfelt work that you're doing?
So my company is called Dogs I Meet. Hello at dogsimeet.com is my email. You can find me on LinkedIn, Mindy Dutka. My website is dogsimeet.com. Kind of goes through literal
Yep.
dogs I meet. And my Instagram is dogs I meet. So reach out, and you will find a phone number attached to. I welcome all types of communication and hearing the stories and um, getting involved in anything that is going to make pets' lives better.
I love that. What a great way to end. I'm so glad you're here, Mindy. I'm sorry it took so long to have you back, but it has been a wonderful discussion. Everyone, please look at the links. They're going to lead you to the places where Mindy has done her extraordinary work. And if you'd like her to take pictures for you, her links will be there too. And until next time, kiss your dog, your cat, your bird, your horse, your lizard. Yeah, I like lizards too. And remember to give us 5 stars. Remember to like us. Remember to share us so that people can hear about these stories and more care for animals will happen. So until next time, take care. 10 years ago, with my iPhone and a script, I recorded the first episode of the Ultimate Pet Resolution Summit, which chatted with experts about conflicts over animals. Our conversations were intimate, honest, and illustrated how disagreements over animals occur and how those disagreements can reshape people's lives and relationships. In November 2019, I started Why Do Pets Matter, a new podcast that continued these informative discussions. I'm so excited to have you here with me, continuing my exploration into a more meaningful conversation about why pets matter to all of us. My guests and I will share ideas, stories, and experiences straight from the heart, unscripted and holistic. From the bravest moments to the most brokenhearted, we will explore how to resolve disagreements over animals differently. One thing I know for sure is I want to have more meaningful conversations that will help all of us unlock that deeply felt human-animal bond that drives the emotions of conflict.